We've now concluded Unit 1, so let's just quickly summarise what we've covered so far. Okay, so we've looked at and described some key concepts of service relationships. So we've talked about service offering, that sort of targeted sort of consumer offering. We looked at the desktop sort of service as a good example, where actually we recognise different requirements from different sort of consumer groups. We talked about the standard office desktop, we talked about the mobile remote workforce, and we talked about maybe certain roles that needed a different level of sort of support, the VIP service. We looked at the importance of this service relationship and this management of that relationship, this joint activity, the provider, the consumer working closely together, to look at joint activities where there's mutual benefit in improving and enhancing the value offered through the services provided. And we talked briefly about service provision and service consumption and the responsibilities of the provider and the responsibilities of the consumer. The key thing being the consumer has a responsibility to make sure they have in place everything required to get the most possible value from the services that are being provided. We use that contact centre as an example of if you don't have enough agents to pick up the phone, then you're going to get a high abandonment rate. That's not the responsibility of the provider if those services are being delivered as required. Then we looked at the guiding principles, those 7 guiding principles. We talked about the fact that these should be used in all circumstances. They give us an approach we should consider whenever we're changing, whenever we're doing something new, even if we're removing something. They give us that approach, the way we want to work, the way we want to approach things, to give us that consistency of approach. And we also talked about their sort of interaction, how all the guiding principles, whilst they stand their own corner, they do actually draw upon each other. And then we looked at the individual guiding principles. We talked about the importance of focus on value. If value is the most important outcome, whichever term you want to use, then we should focus on value, particularly for improvements. And those 2 sort of important points of we need to understand value from the perspective of the consumer because they make the decision on value. And we also need to understand what it is they value. We can't make that sort of assumption because, as we said, value changes over time and circumstance. Start where you are. Those 2 lenses. Look at what you've already got. Can that be reused? If it can, that's fine. If it can't, well, at least it's been considered. And the second lens, which was that importance of understanding the current state. That assessment. Those baseline measures. You can't lose weight until you stand on the scales. Because you can lose weight, but you won't know how much you've lost. So that's important of getting those baseline measures as part of that current state. Progress iteratively with feedback, breaking things down into small incremental improvements, which add up to make a big difference, but break them down. Let's deliver something quickly. And when we've delivered it, before we move on, let's get feedback. Has it delivered what was expected? Has it met the requirements? Has it met the expectation? What have we learned? Can we actually change things before we do the next iteration? Collaborate and promote visibility. So this importance of not thinking in a silo. Let's include, let's share what we're proposing with other stakeholders. Those that might be directly impacted or those that might have input and expertise to share. We're more likely to come up with a better solution and better buy-in if we do that. And of course, if we're going to work together collaboratively, then we need to have visibility of the work, the visibility of the flow of work, where work is up to, where we might have bottlenecks, where we might need to reprioritise, where we might have a lot of rework and waste because we're wasting time and having to rework particular activities due to maybe error rates. We need to understand and have that visibility. Think of work holistically, big picture. So whenever we're approaching anything, let's think big picture. Let's try and think of all the things that potentially we need to consider. And we talked about the 4 dimensions itself being a good plug-in. So we think about the organisation and people impacts. We think about the information technology impacts. partner and supplier impacts, and value streams and process impacts. So again, think of work holistically, think big picture. And then keep it simple and practical, yeah? So, what's our outcome? What's the outcome-based thinking? What we're trying to achieve? What is the most simple and practical way to achieve that? If we can do something in 5 steps, then why should we do it in 10? If we follow this principle, things will be easier to understand and, importantly, easier to maintain. And if we're applying this principle to things that already exist, which are complex, are the things we can actually look and remove? Are the steps we can challenge and take out? And finally, optimize and automate. Can we free people up from routine work? To actually free them up to do higher priority work, maybe more rewarding work. Can we do things faster, better? Can we do things at machine speed, so improve our overall pace and speed? Can we do things in terms of avoiding human error and mistakes, so we focus on using automation for maybe more consistent and quality outcomes? And of course, automation is expensive, so let's focus it on the things that make the most sense. And finally, the optimize elements, of course, is if we're going to automate something that is complex, we're going to create complex automation. So again, before we automate, let's look at whether we can optimize first and then automate. More likely to have better, more reliable, more consistent automation. We looked at the 4 dimensions of service management. Again, going back to this big picture, thinking holistically. We used that example of perhaps bringing in a new service management tool. So what are the organisation and people perspectives? What's the information and technology perspective? What partner and supplier impacts might there be? And what does it mean to our value streams and processes? So again, to think of these dimensions whenever we're looking to create something new, whenever we're looking to change something, whenever we're looking to remove something, we should consider these 4 dimensions and not sort of unconsciously forget or miss things out. We talked about the ITIL service value system, the SVS, this system, and sort of all the components needed to ensure we deliver value from our products and services. And within the service value system, we looked at the service value chain, where all the activities take place, how we convert that demand for our products and services into the value through our products and services. So those different activities we undertake. And those different value chain activities we explain: the plan, the improve, the engage, the design and transition, the obtain and build, and deliver and support. And then finally, we concluded with just a very high level overview of practices. What is a practice? Process, tools, and people. How they come together to create a practice. The 34 practices and how they're sort of logically grouped across those 3 headings. And we'll look at practices in a bit more detail for those most appropriate to create, deliver, and support in later sections.